Virtue of Wisdom of Nagarjuna. Prajnaparamitasutra. 8 Yen Lamad. Composed by the Bodhisattva Nagarjuna and translated by the Tripyakat Harmakarya Kumarajava of the land of Kaucha. Under the later Tsin. Translated from the French. By Gelongma Karma Migmi Chodron 2001. Chapter 36, The 8 Recollections. Sutra. The following should be cultivated by the Bodhisattva. 1. Recollection of the Buddha. 2. Recollection of the Dharma. 3. Recollection of the community. 4. Recollection of discipline. 5. Recollection of abandonment. 6. Recollection of the deities. 7. Recollection of inhalation and exhalation. 8. Recollection of death. Sastra. First section. Position and results of the recollections. I. Position of the recollections in the prajnaparamitha. Question. Why do the 8 recollections follow the 9 notions of the horrible in the Prajnaparamita Answer. In a forest. An empty house. A charnel ground. A mountain. A woods or a desert. The disciples of the Buddha who are meditating properly on the 9 notions and who are practicing the meditation on the inner and outer horrors feel disgust for the body and say to themselves, why do we carry around this vile and horrible sack of excrement and urine? They are pained and frightened by it. Also there is wicked Mara who plays all kinds of evil tricks on them and who comes to frighten them in hopes of making them regress. This is why the Buddha, in the Prajnaparamita continues by explaining the 8 recollections. Dhvajagrasutra. Thus, in a sutra, the Buddha said to the bhiksus, when you are meditating in a forest, an empty house, a charnel ground, a mountain, a woods or a desert, and you experience fear, trembling or exasperation, then recollect the Buddha, thinking, yes, he is the Tathagata thus come. Arhat worthy of homage. Samyaksambuddha completely and fully enlightened. Vidyacaranasampanna endowed with knowledge and practice, sugata welcome, lokavid knower of the world, anuttarah purusadamyasarathih supreme leader of beings to be tamed. Sastadeva manusyanam teacher of gods and men, Buddha awakened and Bhagavath blessed. Your fears will immediately disappear. If you do not recollect the Buddha, you should recollect the Dharma saying. The Dharma of the Buddha is pure, skillfully announced, well said, receiving its retribution in the present lifetime, offering itself to be shared. If you recollect the Dharma thus, your fear will immediately disappear. If you do not recollect the Dharma, you should recollect the Sangha, saying. The community of disciples of the Buddha cultivates the proper path and acts in accordance with the instructions. In this community, there are arhats and candidates for the fruit of arhat and so on, down to srotapannas and candidates for the fruit of srotapanna. Thus 4 pairs of individuals or 8 classes of individuals. This community of disciples of the Buddha is worthy of offerings, worthy of being greeted with joined palms, venerated, saluted, and welcomed. For the world, it is the supreme field of merit. If you commemorate the community thus, your fears will immediately disappear. The Buddha said to the bhiksus. In the struggle against the asuras, in the midst of a great battle, Devendra said to his army of devas. When you are struggling against the asuras and you feel afraid, recollect my standard made of 7 jewels. Mama saptarat nameo dvajagrasutra. And immediately your fear will disappear. If you do not recollect my standard, recollect the precious standard of Dhvajagrasutra Yicho Na Kumarajava's note. The Dhvajagrasutra who is on the left of Indra Sacra. At once your fear will disappear. If you do not recollect the precious standard of Isana, recollect the standard of Dhvajagrasutra Polya Na Kumarajava's note. The Dhvajagrasutra to the right of Indra. At once your fear will disappear. From that we know that the Prajnaparamitasutra continues its account here by speaking of the 8 recollections as the means to drive away fear. 2. All the recollections drive away fear. Question. But the Dhvajagrasutra mentions only 3 recollections, those of the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha as the means to drive away fear. Are the other 5 recollections also able to drive away fear? Answer. 1-2. If the bhiksu thinks about his own virtues of abandonment and discipline, his fear also disappears. Actually, immoral beings fear falling into hell and misers fear being reborn among the hungry ghosts or among poor people. The bhiksu himself remembers that he has pure morality and generosity abandonment. If he recollects his pure discipline or his own abandonment, his mind is joyful and he says to himself, "As long as my life is not exhausted, I will still increase my virtues and, at the end of my life, I will not be afraid of falling into the unfortunate destinies." This is why the recollection of discipline and the recollection of renunciation can also prevent fear from arising. 3. The bhiksu remembers that the higher heavens are the fruits of retribution resulting from abandonment and discipline and that if the deities have taken rebirth there, it is precisely because of these merits. I too, he says to himself, possess these merits. This is why the recollection of the deities also can prevent fear from arising. 4. When the bhiksu recollects the 16 ways of breathing, even the subtle discursiveness disappears. Then what can be said of the coarse thoughts such as fear? 5. In the recollection of death, the bhiksu says to himself, the group of the 5 aggregates arises and perishes in a moment and, from its very birth, it is always associated with death. At this moment, why should I fear death particularly? The Buddha did not speak about these 5 recollections in the Dhvajagrasutra. Nevertheless, they too can drive away fear. Why did the Buddha not speak of them? When we think about the qualities of another, be they those of the Buddha, the Dharma, and the community, it is difficult to drive away fear. On the other hand, when we think of our own qualities, those of discipline, generosity, etc., it is easy to drive away fear. This is why the Buddha did not speak of them in the Dhvajagrasutra. Second section, the 8 recollections according to the Abhidharma. I. Recollection of the Buddha. 1. The 10 names. Question. How does one recollect the Buddha? Answer. Tathagata. The yogin thinks of the Buddha one-pointedly. The Buddha has acquired right knowledge. He is endowed with great loving kindness and great compassion. This is why his words are infallible. Whether they are coarse or subtle, numerous or few, profound or superficial, there is nothing false in them. Since all his words are true, the Buddha is called Tathagata of true speech. Past, future or present, the Buddhas of the 10 directions feel great compassion for beings, practice the 6 perfections and discover the true nature of dharmas. They have reached the anuttarah samyaksambuddha. The present Buddha too has arrived there in the same way. This is why he is called Tathagata thus come. The body of the Buddhas of the 10 directions in the 3 worlds emits great rays that